The sun rose slowly over Iridia Prime, painting the endless desert in shades of orange and gold. The planet was young, still raw from terraforming, and its harsh winds carried the scent of dry soil and strange minerals. Most humans found it unforgiving, but Eli Turner, a quiet man with a slow, careful way of moving, felt at home in this emptiness. Eli's homestead was small, a few wooden structures reinforced with metal plates scavenged from abandoned colony ships. A wind turbine creaked at the edge of the property, spinning lazily in the morning breeze. Eli had built it himself, along with the solar collectors that lined the roof of his main cabin. The man was shy, almost painfully so, but he had a gift. He could make machines work, no matter how broken or strange. Today, like every day, Eli rose before dawn. He dressed quickly in his worn boots, dusty trousers, and a leather jacket that smelled faintly of oil and sweat. His hat sat low on his brow, shadowing eyes that had seen more loneliness than most people could bear. He stepped outside, feeling the hot wind bite his skin. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, silent but alive. Eli's only companions were the animals he kept. A mechanical horse, patched with parts from 3 different colonies, clattered across the dirt yard. Its eyes glowed faintly as it powered down beside him. A scrappy dog, no breed Eli could name, wagged its tail but kept a careful distance, much like Eli himself. He fed the animals, checked the water supply, and polished his tools. Each action was precise, a rhythm he had perfected over years of isolation. Life here was simple, safe, and quiet, and that suited Eli just fine. But quiet on Iridia Prime was always temporary. The first sign of trouble came mid-morning. A faint tremor shook the ground, almost imperceptible at first, but enough to make Eli pause. He wiped his hands on a rag and listened. In the distance, dust rose like a column from the edge of the settlement. Strange, twisted shapes moved within it, too fast for any human to keep up with. Eli's heart beat faster than usual. He had seen these creatures before, strange desert predators adapted to the harsh environment. They were not like earth animals. Their bodies were angular and lean, with shells that glimmered in the sunlight. They were smart enough to hunt in packs, and dangerous enough to make most colonists hide indoors. He clenched his jaw. The settlers had been lucky so far, but luck had limits. Eli was used to dealing with machinery, not monsters, and yet he felt something familiar stir in him. The calm, measured focus that always came when danger appeared. He saddled his mechanical horse, the familiar weight and sound grounding him. The dog barked once and ran alongside, its small frame bounding over rocks and sand. Eli headed toward the settlement, keeping low to avoid drawing attention. By the time he arrived, chaos had taken hold. Colonists ran in all directions, shouting warnings to each other. Children cried, and adults yelled, trying to herd livestock away from the dust storms stirred up by the predators. Eli scanned the scene. A small group of settlers had gathered near a water tower, their faces pale with fear. Eli stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Everyone, stay back. Don't try to chase them." Some recognized him. Eli Turner was not a hero, not by any stretch of the imagination, but he was reliable. He knew machines, and he knew the land. And in moments like this, that mattered more than courage. He worked quickly. Using spare metal panels, ropes, and cables, he set up a series of traps and barriers. His hands moved fast, but with precision. He anchored spikes at key points, laid nets across narrow paths, and rigged a makeshift alarm system using sensors scavenged from old rovers. Within minutes, the area was fortified, not a palace, not a perfect defense, but enough to keep most of the creatures at bay. The settlers watched in awe as Eli calmly directed them, assigning tasks and explaining the simple rules of survival. "Don't run straight at them," he instructed. "Use the barriers. Work together. You'll be safe if you follow me." The creatures approached, cautious but curious. Their shells glimmered in the harsh sunlight, and their movements were unnervingly intelligent. Eli's traps worked. The first few tried to charge but were stopped by cables and spikes. A few were caught in nets, thrashing but unable to break free. Eli felt a strange thrill not of violence, but of control, of knowing that human ingenuity could still outsmart nature, even in its most alien forms. He glanced around. The settlers, once panicked, now moved with a sense of purpose. They followed his instructions, and slowly, the chaos turned into order. By the time the sun reached its highest point, the creatures retreated, frustrated and wounded, disappearing back into the desert. Eli's traps had done their job. The settlement was safe. For now, when the adrenaline faded, Eli stepped back and surveyed the scene. There were minor injuries, a few broken fences, and a lot of dust. But no one was dead. The settlers approached him, murmuring thanks. "You did it, Eli," said one woman, her voice shaking. "I thought we were done for." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "Just doing what needs to be done," he muttered. As he walked back to his homestead, he noticed something strange on the horizon, a faint glint of metal against the sunlight. A ship? Eli squinted. The outline was unlike anything from the existing colony fleet. It was sleek, polished, and clearly designed for speed and style rather than utility. He didn't know it yet, but the ship carried someone who would change his life forever. For now, Eli returned to his quiet routine. He fed his animals, repaired broken panels, and checked his traps. The desert winds blew around him, whispering secrets of the planet, and for the first time in a long while, he wondered if perhaps the silence he had cherished was about to end. By evening, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the sand. Eli sat outside his cabin, cleaning his tools, and stared at the horizon where the ship had disappeared behind a distant ridge. He felt a strange mix of anticipation and unease. Change was coming, and Eli Turner, timid and reserved as he was, would have to face it whether he wanted to or not. The stars began to appear, scattered across the darkening sky like diamonds. Eli looked up and felt something he hadn't felt in years. A spark of curiosity. A flicker of hope. The quiet life he had built was about to be disrupted, and deep down, a part of him was ready. For the first time, Eli imagined what it would be like to meet someone who didn't just admire him for his skills, but someone who could challenge him, push him, and maybe, just maybe, awaken a part of him he had long kept hidden, somewhere beyond the ridges of Iridia Prime, that someone was coming. And Eli Turner's world, so small and careful, was about to be transformed. The next morning, Iridia Prime's desert stretched under a bright, merciless sun. Eli Turner was already up, as usual, repairing a wind turbine that had developed a strange hum during the night. The solitude of his homestead was comforting. His mechanical horse clanked nearby, and the scrappy dog lay in the shade of the cabin. Life was predictable, safe, but the horizon told a different story. A shiny streak of light appeared far away, glinting in the morning sun. The dust kicked up around it, revealed the arrival of a new ship. Sleek, silver, and unmistakably human, yet unlike any transport Eli had ever seen. Its engines made a soft hum that carried across the desert, a sound both alien and mesmerizing. Eli set down his wrench and shaded his eyes. "Well, that's new," he muttered. His heart beat faster than usual. Most newcomers arrived in utilitarian colony freighters. This ship was something else: beautiful, fast, and clearly not meant for hauling cargo. By mid-morning, the ship had landed on a nearby plateau. A ramp extended, and humans began to step out, carrying their belongings and scanning the landscape. Most were ordinary settlers, anxious and cautious, but one figure drew Eli's attention immediately. She moved with quiet confidence, each step deliberate yet graceful. Her skin was sun-kissed, her dark hair braided neatly to stay out of her face. Her eyes were sharp, observant, and full of a quiet fire. She wore practical clothes, a jumpsuit reinforced with light armor, but carried herself as if she owned the desert itself. Eli's first thought was simple and unremarkable. She was different. This was Maya, an Apache-descended engineer and biologist, sent to help expand human settlements on Iridia Prime. Her role was to analyze the planet's ecosystems, repair advanced machinery, and guide the colonists in adapting to their harsh environment. But her presence brought more than expertise. It brought life, curiosity, and courage, qualities that Eli had rarely seen in the quiet corners of his world. Eli stayed hidden behind a ridge, watching as the newcomers set up a temporary base. Most settlers were nervous, whispering about the strange desert predators and the harshness of the land. Maya, however, moved among them with calm authority, checking water sources, evaluating shelter structures, and offering guidance without a hint of condescension. Eli felt something stir in him, a strange mix of admiration and curiosity. He had never approached strangers. He preferred the company of machines and animals, but he found himself wanting to understand her, to see how she thought and acted. He returned to his homestead, pretending to focus on chores, but he kept sneaking glances toward the new settlement. By noon, he noticed something unusual. Maya was kneeling beside a broken drone, her hands deftly working on its circuits while explaining to a young colonist why it had failed. Her voice was firm but patient, and Eli realized he had never seen anyone work with such skill and care. When a dust storm kicked up in the afternoon, many settlers panicked, scrambling to secure their belongings. Maya moved through the chaos as if it were nothing, guiding people to safety, protecting them from falling equipment, and calmly coordinating repairs. Eli watched, a knot forming in his chest. He had handled crises before, but he had never seen someone so completely unafraid. By evening, when the storm passed, Eli decided to visit the newcomers carefully. Of course, he mounted his mechanical horse and rode toward the plateau, keeping his distance until he was close enough to observe without drawing attention. Maya noticed him immediately. She tilted her head and smiled faintly. Not a flirtatious smile, but one that suggested she understood curiosity and welcomed it. Eli felt his face heat up and ducked behind a sand dune. "Come out, quiet cowboy," Maya called, her voice carrying clearly over the dust-swept plateau. "I'm not going to bite." Eli hesitated. His first instinct was to retreat, but something inside him, an unfamiliar confidence, urged him forward. He rode closer, eventually stopping a safe distance away. "I'm Eli," he said, voice low but steady. "I live nearby." Maya's smile widened just a little. "I'm Maya. I've heard about your traps. You saved the settlement last night, didn't you?" Eli nodded, shrugging. "I do what I can. Machines and the land. That's my job." "You did more than that," Maya said. "You helped people. That counts for a lot." Her words were simple, but Eli felt them resonate deeply. Most humans in his life had barely noticed him. She had noticed. They talked for a while, exchanging details about the land, the predators, and the challenges of living on Iridia Prime. Eli found himself speaking more freely than he had in years. He described his mechanical horse, his wind turbines, and the small inventions he used to survive in the desert. Maya listened, genuinely interested, asking questions that made him think and see his own world in a new light. "You're clever," she said at one point, leaning back to study him. "You've built a life out here that most people would fail at. I respect that." Eli's heart skipped. Compliments were rare, respect even rarer. He mumbled a thank you, brushing it off, but inside, he felt warmth spread through him. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion. A small group of settlers had spotted the desert predators again, moving toward the water storage tanks. Maya sprang into action instantly, issuing instructions and coordinating defense strategies. Eli felt the familiar rush of adrenaline and instinct kick in. This time, he was not alone. Together, Eli and Maya worked seamlessly. He set traps and barricades, while she calculated the creature's behavior and suggested tactical adjustments. Their combined skills impressed the settlers, who began to trust the two of them implicitly. After the predators retreated, Maya turned to Eli. "You've got guts, you know that?" she said, wiping dust from her hands. "I'm careful," Eli replied, unsure how to respond. Careful is good, she said, smiling. But sometimes, a little courage is necessary too. Eli realized he had never felt so alive. For the first time, he wasn't just surviving. He was part of something bigger, working with someone who inspired him, who challenged him, and who made him see the world differently. As the sun set over the plateau, painting the sky in brilliant reds and purples, Eli and Maya sat atop a dune, surveying the settlement below. The dust had settled, the machines were repaired, and the colonists were safe. "You'll have to show me how to make one of those traps sometime," Maya said casually, nodding toward a snare Eli had set earlier. Eli chuckled, a sound rare and genuine. "It's not hard. Just takes patience, and a lot of trial and error." "I like trial and error," she replied. "Means you're willing to learn, willing to try." For Eli, those words were more than casual conversation. They were a spark, a promise that perhaps the quiet life he had known didn't have to be lonely forever. Maybe he could grow, learn, and become more than he had ever imagined. As night fell, stars blanketed the desert sky. Eli watched them in wonder, feeling a quiet excitement building inside him. Change was no longer coming, it had arrived. In the form of a brave, intelligent, and endlessly fascinating woman who had walked into his life and begun to reshape it. And for the first time, Eli Turner did not shy away from the possibilities. He felt ready. The sun climbed high over Iridia Prime, its light scorching the sand and the jagged rocks scattered across the desert. Eli Turner had never thought of the planet as forgiving, but that morning, even he felt the heat searing his skin through his clothes. Sweat ran down his brow, and the mechanical horse's metal frame reflected the sun, making it nearly impossible to look directly at. Maya had insisted they patrol the nearby settlement and its water supplies. "Better safe than sorry," she said, brushing sand from her jumpsuit. "The predators are smart. They won't wait for us to rest." Eli nodded, though inwardly he was nervous. He had dealt with these creatures before, but never in full view of the settlers. And this time, he was not alone. Maya moved beside him with calm precision, checking the sensors and adjusting small drones that hovered nearby, scanning for life. "Those things out there," Eli said quietly, pointing toward a ridge where dust swirled, "they aren't like anything from Earth. They move smart, together." Maya nodded. "I've studied similar behavior in colony wildlife reports. They're pack hunters, but they adapt. We'll need to anticipate their moves." The creatures arrived faster than Eli expected. From the horizon, shadows darted across the sand, lean, angular, and unnervingly coordinated. The settlers had built small fences and barriers, but the predators ignored simple obstacles. They came closer, circling, testing the colony's defenses. Eli's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. "We'll need to trap them," he said. "I have a plan, but it'll take timing." Maya glanced at him, impressed. He explained quickly, pointing to weak points in the fences and locations where the predators were likely to pass. "We'll use nets, trip lines, and the energy pulses from the sensors," he said. "We'll funnel them toward the canyon. Once they're there, we can block the exit." Maya listened carefully, adjusting his instructions with small tweaks based on her observations. "We'll need to distract the pack leader first," she said. "It's the biggest, the one with the glowing shell. If we mislead it, the others will follow." They set their plan into motion. Eli laid nets across the sand and anchored them with heavy rocks, while Maya used a drone to create flashes of light, drawing the predator's attention away from the colony. Each step required precision. One miscalculation, and the creatures could destroy the fences or worse, harm the settlers. The predators reacted instantly, more intelligent than Eli had ever imagined. The pack leader noticed the light and darted toward it, with the rest following. Dust clouds rose as they moved, sand whipping across Eli's face and stinging his eyes. He held his ground, signaling to Maya, who maneuvered the drone like a conductor directing an orchestra. When the predators neared the canyon, Eli triggered the nets. They shot up, tangling several of the smaller creatures. The pack leader struggled against the distraction, but moved cautiously, wary of the traps. Maya guided it closer to the canyon edge using a combination of lights and careful movements, showing a talent for thinking quickly under pressure that Eli found astonishing. The settlers watched from a distance, wide-eyed. Many had never seen humans work together with such efficiency, creativity, and courage. The fear in their eyes began to fade. Replaced by trust in Eli and Maya, the tension built as the pack leader reached the canyon. Eli's hands shook slightly, but he forced himself to focus. With a flick of a lever, a heavy barrier dropped, cutting off the creature's escape. The remaining predators, seeing their leader trapped, hesitated, giving Eli and Maya the moment they needed to guide them back into a safe path, away from the colony. When the dust finally settled, the predators retreated into the desert. Eli wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked around. His chest heaved, not just from exertion, but from exhilaration. They had done it. Together, Maya approached him. Her jumpsuit streaked with dust. "You're calm under pressure," she said, brushing sand from her hair. Most people would have panicked. Eli felt a rush of pride, though he tried to hide it. "I just plan," he said. "And I follow the land. The desert tells you what works and what doesn't." Maya smiled. "Planning is important, but heart matters too." You had both. For the first time, Eli realized how much he had underestimated himself. He had spent years hiding behind machines and solitude, believing he was too timid for real challenges. But here he was, guiding a settlement through danger, side by side with someone who respected his mind and admired his courage. After the predators had gone, the two of them checked the damage. Fences were bent, a water tank had a dent, and one of the small drones had been destroyed. But nothing was beyond repair, and no one had been seriously hurt. Eli's skills had saved the settlers, but Maya's insights had made the victory possible. The sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert. Eli and Maya sat on a dune, overlooking the settlement. The air was thick with dust, but also with a sense of accomplishment. "You work well with others," Maya said, glancing at him. "Not many people can stay calm while others panic. You should be proud." Eli looked down, unsure how to respond. I never thought of myself that way," he admitted. "I usually just keep to myself." "Well," she said, "maybe it's time you start thinking differently. You have more strength than you give yourself credit for." They shared a quiet moment, watching the last light of day fade. For Eli, the desert no longer felt empty. It felt alive, filled with possibilities, and with someone by his side who challenged him to grow. The next morning, the settlement buzzed with energy. News of their success spread quickly. Settlers came to Eli and Maya with questions, seeking advice, and asking for help with repairs and defenses. Eli realized that for the first time, people were not just tolerating him, they were looking to him as a source of guidance. Maya was encouraging, but she let him take the lead. "You know this place better than anyone," she said. "I'm just here to help you show everyone else what you know." Eli felt a strange warmth at her words. It was not pride alone, it was recognition. He had spent so long hiding, thinking his skills were ordinary. But now, side by side with Maya, he felt truly capable. Over the next few days, they repaired the damaged fences, reinforced water supplies, and implemented new defense strategies. They worked late into the night, often talking quietly while the settlers slept, sharing stories of Earth, of Iridia Prime, and of the strange beauty of surviving in a desert that seemed determined to test them. One evening, as they rested atop a dune after a long day, Maya turned to Eli. "You know," she said, "most people wouldn't have survived that first attack. But you didn't just survive. You led." Eli felt his chest tighten. I never thought I could." "You did, and you'll keep doing it. You just needed someone to remind you." For Eli, the words resonated deeply. It was more than encouragement, it was a call to action, a reminder that his life did not have to be small and hidden. With Maya's presence, he could be more than he had ever imagined. As night fell, stars stretched across the sky in an endless tapestry. The desert was quiet now, but Eli knew it was only temporary. Predators would return, challenges would come, and the settlers would rely on him again. But for the first time, he welcomed the thought. He felt ready. Beside him, Maya adjusted the sensors for the next patrol, her movements precise and confident. Eli watched her for a moment, feeling gratitude, admiration, and a spark of something he had not felt in years: hope. The desert, harsh and unyielding, had tested him, and he had passed. The partnership between Eli and Maya was no longer just about survival. It had become a bond of trust, respect, and shared courage. Together, they had faced the first real challenge of life on Iridia Prime, and they had triumphed. And deep down, Eli knew that this was only the beginning. The desert of Iridia Prime stretched endlessly, a sea of golden sand and jagged rocks, baking under the relentless sun. Eli Turner had grown used to its harshness, but now he noticed things he had never seen before: strange patterns in the dunes, unusual tracks near his homestead, and faint changes in the air suggested something was shifting in the desert. Maya had been studying the land carefully, recording every detail. "Eli, look at this," she said one morning, pointing to a series of tracks. "These aren't just normal predators. Something is driving them closer to the settlements." Eli leaned over, examining the marks in the sand. "I've seen them move this way before, but never like this. It's almost like they're being pushed." "Exactly," Maya said. "Something in the environment is forcing them to change their behavior. The water tables, the heat, maybe even the terraforming equipment. We need to figure it out before the settlers are in danger again." Eli felt a flicker of excitement mixed with anxiety. Unlike previous challenges, this wasn't just about traps and defense. It required thinking, observing, and experimenting. And for the first time, he felt eager to face that challenge. Together, they set out into the desert, carrying sensors, drones, and supplies. Eli led the way with his mechanical horse, scanning the land for any signs of change. Maya followed, taking meticulous notes and adjusting her instruments. They moved quietly, the desert wind blowing around them, carrying the scent of dry earth and the faint metallic tang of the terraforming machines. Hours passed, and Eli felt a growing respect for Maya's knowledge. She could read the land like he could read a machine, noticing patterns and signals, invisible to most. When she pointed out anomalies in the soil, Eli realized he had never thought about the desert as a living system, responding to human actions in ways both subtle and profound. "See this?" Maya said, kneeling near a shallow depression in the sand. She brushed it lightly with her hand. "Anra, Maya. The water beneath the surface has shifted. The creatures are following it. If we don't stabilize the environment, they'll keep coming closer to the colony." Eli nodded, his mind racing. He thought of his wind turbines, his water collectors, his small inventions. What if he could use them to restore balance? What if humans could not just survive, but actively help the land thrive again? He shared his idea with Maya. "If we redirect some of the runoff from the turbines, we can keep the water closer to its natural path. And we can use the old barriers to guide the creatures back into the desert, away from the settlements." Maya's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant, Eli. It combines your practical skills with my understanding of the ecosystem. Together, we can fix this." They spent the next few days experimenting. Eli adjusted his machines, rerouting energy and water flows. Maya analyzed the results, noting how the creatures reacted and how the land responded. Step by step, they restored balance, learning from each attempt, failing at times, and adjusting. During one particularly hot afternoon, they encountered the pack leader again. It had returned to a dried-up water source, clearly struggling. Eli froze for a moment, but Maya placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We can help it," she said. "Not with weapons, but with understanding." Eli hesitated, then nodded. He guided the creatures toward a newly stabilized oasis, watching as they drank and moved on, leaving the colony untouched. A sense of triumph filled him, not because he had defeated them, but because he had solved the problem without harm. That evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the desert in fiery colors, Eli and Maya sat on a dune overlooking the settlement. Eli felt a strange transformation inside him. He was no longer the timid, solitary man who had once hidden behind machines. He had confidence now, a growing belief in his own abilities, and an awareness that humans, through ingenuity, care, and cooperation, could shape their world for the better. "You've changed," Maya said softly, breaking the silence. "You're more confident. You're thinking ahead, not just reacting." Eli shrugged, feeling a warmth he could not explain. I think I've realized something. It's not just about surviving. We can do more. We can make this place better for the settlers, for the creatures, for ourselves." Maya smiled, her dark eyes reflecting the setting sun. "Exactly. And you're the kind of person who can make it happen. You just needed someone to remind you of your own strength." The next morning, they continued their work, extending their experiments to other areas around the settlement. Eli found joy in observing the land, adjusting machinery to help maintain balance, and seeing tangible results. The desert, once an enemy, was becoming a partner. Meanwhile, Maya's influence grew stronger, but she never overshadowed him. She encouraged Eli to make decisions, trusted his instincts, and celebrated his successes. Through this, Eli began to see himself not just as a handyman or a quiet observer, but as a leader capable of guiding others. One day, while repairing a solar collector near a canyon, Eli paused to look at Maya. She was studying the movement of the creatures through her drone, noting patterns and adjusting plans. He realized then how much he had come to admire her, not just for her intelligence, but for her courage, her patience, and her unshakable sense of purpose. "You know," he said, voice low, "I never thought I'd enjoy this, working with someone else." Maya looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I thought you would. You just needed the right challenge. And maybe the right company." Eli chuckled, feeling a strange lightness in his chest. "Right company, huh? I guess that's fair." As days passed, they continued their work, repairing machines, stabilizing water flows, and observing the creatures. Each success reinforced Eli's growing confidence. The settlers noticed too, coming to him for advice and guidance. He felt a sense of pride he had never known before, not from solitude, but from being part of a team that respected him and relied on his skills. One evening, after a long day of monitoring the desert, they sat quietly atop a dune. The stars were bright, scattered across the sky like glittering jewels. Eli felt a sense of peace, a clarity he had never experienced in his quiet life. "You've grown, Eli," Maya said softly. "Not just in skill but in heart. You see the bigger picture now." "I guess I had to," Eli replied. "I couldn't do this alone. And you helped me see that I could do more than I thought." Maya smiled, reaching over to adjust a sensor for the next patrol. "We help each other. That's what makes humans strong. And that's what makes you strong." For the first time, Eli truly believed it. He was no longer the timid cowboy, hiding in his homestead. He was a man capable of leadership, courage, and innovation. He was someone who could face the harshest desert, solve impossible problems, and inspire others to follow. And he realized something even more important. He wanted to continue this journey not just with the settlers, not just with the creatures, but with Maya by his side. The desert wind blew softly around them, carrying the scent of dry earth and the faint tang of metal. Eli felt alive, connected to the land, to the creatures, and to the humans he had grown to care for. The world was harsh, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. But it was also full of opportunity, adventure, and the promise of transformation. As the night deepened, Eli Turner sat beside Maya, gazing at the stars, and felt a quiet certainty settle in his heart. He had been tested, challenged, and changed. The timid cowboy was gone. In his place stood a man ready to embrace the world, to shape it with his hands, and to face whatever challenges came next. And he knew, without doubt, that the greatest adventures were still ahead. The desert of Iridia Prime glowed under the rising sun, casting long shadows over the jagged rocks and sand dunes. Eli Turner stood atop a small ridge, the mechanical horse clattering softly beside him. The quiet morning felt almost peaceful, but Eli knew better. The predators had returned, more organized and intelligent than ever. They were following a new path, closer to the colony than before. The settlers were anxious, but this time, they were not helpless. They had Eli, and now, they also had Maya. Maya joined him on the ridge, her dark hair catching the first light of day. "Eli, they're moving faster than we expected," she said, scanning the horizon with a small device. "We'll need a new plan." Eli nodded, his mind already working through possibilities. "We'll need to guide them, not fight them," he said. "If we can lead them away from the settlement and back to the open desert, everyone will be safe. But it has to be precise. One mistake, and they'll reach the colony." Maya smiled faintly. "You've become a real strategist, Eli. I'm glad we're on the same side." They spent the morning setting traps, redirecting water flows, and positioning drones. Eli adjusted his wind turbines to create small gusts of wind, masking the settlers' movements, while Maya calculated the creatures' likely paths, adjusting the plan with sharp precision. By midday, the first predators appeared, moving with intelligence and coordination that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The pack leader, its shell glinting in the sunlight, led the others with uncanny strategy. Eli felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the moment to put all their preparation to the test. "Remember," Maya said quietly, "we guide them. No harm unless absolutely necessary." Eli nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He signaled to the settlers to remain calm and quiet, while he and Maya positioned themselves near the first trap line. The predators moved closer, circling, testing the defenses. Eli triggered a net, tangling several smaller creatures. Maya used a drone to create flickering lights, distracting the pack leader. The creatures hesitated, wary of the traps and the strange lights. Eli saw the perfect moment and directed the pack leader toward a narrow canyon, using a combination of barriers and water channels to guide its movements. Maya's calculations proved flawless. The predators followed the path exactly as she had predicted. As the creatures entered the canyon, Eli and Maya activated the final barriers, trapping the pack leader without harming it. The remaining predators, seeing their leader cornered, paused, then followed the path back into the open desert. Away from the settlement, the dust settled. Silence returned to the desert, broken only by the mechanical hum of Eli's horse and the soft hum of drones. Eli exhaled, feeling a mix of exhaustion and triumph. They had succeeded. The settlers emerged from their shelters, cheering and expressing gratitude. For the first time, they saw humans not just surviving but mastering their environment, working with intelligence, courage, and teamwork. Eli felt a sense of pride that went beyond personal achievement. It was the pride of seeing humanity rise to meet challenges and thrive. Maya approached him, wiping dust from her jumpsuit. "You did it," she said simply. "All of it. The traps, the planning, everything." Eli shook his head, a small smile forming. "We did it. I couldn't have done this without you." Her smile widened. "And I couldn't have done it without you either. You've changed, Eli. You're not the timid cowboy anymore. You're someone who can lead, protect, and inspire others." Eli felt warmth spread through him. For the first time, he truly believed it. The man who had once hidden behind machines in solitude was gone. In his place stood a man capable of courage, strategy, and leadership. Over the next few days, Eli and Maya worked with the settlers to repair damage, strengthen defenses, and stabilize the desert ecosystem further. They rerouted water flows, repaired broken fences, and improved the drone systems for monitoring wildlife. Each success reinforced the settlers' trust and their own confidence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eli and Maya stood atop a dune, looking at the thriving settlement below. Children ran freely among the repaired structures. Settlers worked together without fear, and the desert, once a threat, now seemed a partner in their survival. "You've made a real difference here," Maya said softly, her eyes reflecting the orange glow of the sky. Eli nodded, feeling a rare sense of peace. "I just did what I could. But it feels good to see it work. To see people safe." Maya reached out and lightly touched his arm. "You've done more than that. You've transformed this settlement, and you've transformed yourself. You've found your strength, and you've helped others find theirs." Eli looked at her, feeling gratitude, admiration, and something more he had not expected. A spark of hope, a desire to continue this journey. Side by side with someone who believed in him, the stars began to appear, scattered across the night sky like diamonds. Eli felt a quiet excitement, knowing that the challenges of Iridia Prime were far from over. But confident in his ability to face them, he turned to Maya. "The desert, it doesn't feel like an enemy anymore," he said. "It feels alive. And it feels like there's a place for us here, together with the settlers, the machines, and the land itself." Maya smiled, nodding. "Exactly. And we'll face whatever comes next, together." In the following weeks, Eli and Maya continued to lead the settlement, teaching the settlers how to work with the land, rather than against it. They repaired old machines, built new defenses, and studied the desert creatures to understand their behavior. Eli's skills with machinery, combined with Maya's knowledge of biology and ecosystems, created a synergy that made the colony stronger than ever. The settlers began to thrive. Crops grew in controlled plots, water was managed carefully, and the community learned to coexist with the desert creatures, rather than fearing them. Eli felt pride not for himself alone, but for humanity's resilience, the ability to adapt, innovate, and grow, even in the most challenging conditions. One morning, Eli stood at the edge of the settlement, looking at the horizon. The sun rose slowly, casting long shadows across the dunes. Maya joined him, her presence calm and reassuring. "You've come a long way, Eli," she said, her voice soft but confident. "From the quiet homestead to this, leader, protector, and innovator." Eli smiled, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "I couldn't have done it alone. You helped me see what I was capable of, and you helped me see that humans can rise to any challenge if we work together." Maya placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've both learned a lot. But this is just the beginning. Iridia Prime is vast, and there's so much more to explore, understand, and protect." Eli nodded, feeling a sense of anticipation. The planet was no longer a threat, but a canvas for human ingenuity and courage. He had grown, learned, and transformed, and he was ready for whatever came next. As they watched the desert, the settlers working and thriving below, Eli realized something profound. Humanity was capable of extraordinary things, not just surviving, but mastering challenges, learning from them, and growing stronger. And he, once a timid cowboy, was living proof. The wind whispered across the dunes, carrying the promise of new adventures, discoveries, and challenges. Eli and Maya stood together, ready to face them. Side by side, their partnership a symbol of hope, courage, and the enduring spirit of humanity. For the first time, Eli Turner looked at the horizon and smiled, not just because he had survived, but because he had transformed, and he knew that the future held endless possibilities. The colony thrived, the creatures retreated into the desert, and the settlers flourished under the guidance of Eli and Maya. The quiet cowboy was gone, replaced by a man confident, courageous, and ready to lead humanity into a new frontier. And as the twin moons of Iridia Prime rose in the night sky, Eli and Maya stood together on a dune, looking out at a world they had helped shape, a world full of challenges, beauty, and promise. The desert was no longer an enemy. It was a horizon full of opportunity. And humanity, resilient, clever, and unyielding, had carved its place in it.